Welcome to the Future of Field Service podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Nicastro. Today's podcast is a session from the London stop of the Future of Field Service live tour. It features Mike Gosling, who is the IT Service Platforms Manager at Cubic Transportation Systems. Cubic Transportation produces and markets public transport fare reading and payment systems for the transportation industry around the world, including Transport for London. In this discussion, we talk about how Cubic Transportations has successfully migrated to an outcomes-based service model with the help of a dynamic scheduling solution, some change management and use of artificial intelligence, and a variety of other aspects. Mike is incredibly knowledgeable and shares some really good insight on some of what's required for service organizations to shift from a break-fix model to the concept of delivering or guaranteeing outcomes. I hope you enjoy. So next up, I'm excited to be joined by my friend Mike Gosling, who is the IT Service Platforms Manager at Cubic Transportation Systems. And we're going to talk a bit about outcomes-based service. So Mike is essentially offering a different perspective on the path to advanced services, and we're going to talk a little bit about what his journey has looked like, what some of the learnings are, what is coming next, etc. So before we dig in, Mike, tell folks a little bit about yourself and about Cubic.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. I started many years ago as an electronics engineer in a computing company, working right down to mainframe PCBs and things like that. They did their forecasting in teacups, which meant that they collapsed and burned pretty quickly, and I was made redundant. Joined Cubic, they weren't called Cubic then, and I was an engineer, working electronics engineer. And they started introducing business systems into the company. And one day I went into the manager of the IT team and said that I can do better than that because I thought they weren't doing very well. So I did. And he said, right, have a go.
That confidence.
Yeah, well, you know. And years of being rugby captains and things, big personality, sorry about that, guys. Ego the size of East Grinstead. Anyway, joined the team, and then very quickly, because of my field service experience and things like that, and because I'd also been out in the field, by the way, troubleshooting out in the field and things like that, because they put me in charge of the field service systems. Now, very interesting discussions that we've had early on today, very interesting, and we are now outcomes, and I'll get to that, but I don't think we necessarily, by the way, sorry, Cubic. Who remembers a London prior to Oyster Card? Yeah, it was pretty rubbish, wasn't it? Because we are the people that basically do Oyster Card. We are the people that do all of the transport for London and most of the UK travel infrastructure. We do it all over the world. We're world leaders. So if you go to Sydney, we're there. Manhattan, we're all over the world. We're the European hub, but we do influence the rest of the world. My little team punches quite high in the business, so I'm proud of the team. Rob's here. Oh, he's just heard me say that now. He's going to want to pay rise. Anyway. So yeah, Oyster Card. So now Cubic, couple of the things about Cubic is that we have two mantras. We've got many strategies, but two mantras that are very important to us: winning the customer obsession and innovation. And our journey to outcome-based, those were the pillars that got us there. And we, by following those, we then fell into outcome-based, and I'll explain how. When we first got the contract years ago with Transport for London, who's our biggest customer, Transport for London are an amazing customer to work for, as well as the others. We've got other amazing customers in the rest of the UK, but Transport for London are amazing because London is an amazing city. It's the world leader, and they want to be the best. No one, Manhattan, oh, no, London's better. Sydney, no, London's better. So they drove us to make sure that our technologies were up to as good as possible for the infrastructure that they're in. We wanted to innovate and win the customer. So as TfL were going on the journey of trying to be the best city and having things like the Olympics, where their travel infrastructure was put under huge strain and stresses, and the whole world and the Daily Mail was ready to write the horrible headlines, traffic congestion in London spoils Olympics. It never happened. It never happened because the entire infrastructure that TfL put into place was magnificent, and we played a part of that. Innovation. Well, okay, we want to start using smart cards, or Oyster cards. Okay, well, how do you do that? Off you go, Cubic, do that. We'd like to do it. You want to do it? Let's do it together. You plug readers in. You start taking data off readers, so you build the back office infrastructure, so you have back office IT services to manage those. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of like, hold on, we can now start taking that data as well and using it to log incidents, because there's loads of information on that. And then that data can be backfed into engineering because we can improve the product. Brilliant. So everything's connected. And then they say, now we want to go card payments. Okay, yeah, card payments. So we have to then, again, do better integration and better tokenization and go through PCI compliance and all this sort of stuff, becoming more IT services, more back office services. And then we introduce, because now they've got CAT cables and things like that, we can introduce better PCs and control boards and things inside them. We can also start monitoring. And so this innovation between ourselves and Transportation for London and other companies, all of a sudden you go to bed one day quite proud of the Olympics going well and all this, and you wake up the next day and we're an IT services company. We're no longer a company that sells machines. We supply IT services to Transport for London. And Transport for London in the last rebid recognised that and came back and said, okay guys, now that everything's in place, your contract is no longer, we want 20 gates here and break and fix. It's now, you are going to supply hours of retail and hours of validation at stations and on buses, and you're going to supply hours of back office system support for your IT services, and you're going to supply hours of retail support for the retail terminals. And how you do that is entirely up to you, because that's it. The outcome is those hours, and you're going to take all the risk of that, and you'll take the revenue because we all want money, but you're going to have to do that. Now, from my team, how are we innovating? Well, we'd already started to try and be more efficient in the way. By the way, if you want to ask a question at some point, just jump in. But
all right,
you want to hear a story? I can tell a story. We wanted to be more efficient the way we operated. So we had all these engineers all over the place, and we wanted to grow the business, because to grow the business all over the UK, we didn't want to just throw engineers at it. And one of the dangers about outcome-based is everyone talks about Rolls-Royce, you talk about Rolls-Royce, it's fantastic, hours of air. Well, it's the same for us. If we want things to be working for 20 hours a day when the service is open, or 24, let's just plant an engineer there all day long. And then the moment it fixes, press the button, it goes again. The moment it fixes, tweak that, it's back again. Well, that's just totally inefficient. We'd been starting to use tools, dynamic scheduling tools, to make sure that our engineers are more efficient the way they move around the business. Huge change in the way they operated. They were no longer being governed by someone phoning them up and saying, yeah, can you pop down to Waterloo? There's a couple of gates broken down there. Do them in your own time and call us when you're finished. And the guy's saying, oh, actually, there's a cafe at Seven Sisters. Do you mind if I can pop up there first? Oh, yeah, actually, there is a job there. Go there, yeah, don't worry about the Waterloo. That's just totally inefficient. So we had dynamic scheduling tools come in. We had mobile comms come in, because we were starting, if you're getting enriched data from your machines, to engineer and look at that, you want enriched data from your engineers to how they fix that data. And voice interface is the single worst thing in the entire world. And if you ever go down mobile comms, which some of you always do, narrative, tiny bit of narrative, because otherwise it's exploited and you'll get rubbish. Anyway, we were building that to become more efficient. We were building that to become more, the way that we operated. And it was a hard change. We can talk about that if you want to later on, but that was a hard change. So all of a sudden we wake up one morning, our equipment's monitoring itself. We're getting all this data in. Our engineers are efficiently being scheduled around the system, and we're using mobile comms, and it's all fantastic. And then all of a sudden TfL said, right, now we're coming out outcome services, and literally go from the L contract starts tomorrow. You've got 3 months until the new contract starts, and that's the way it is. So we I'm not sure maybe we can crowbar some of the stages in organically into those 4 stages, but basically we were innovating to suit our own needs, and then bang, off we go and start exploiting. And we did. We started exploiting. And the transition to it was absolutely fantastic, because it was almost kind of like, oh, that's what you're right, this makes more sense now. Mm-hmm. And there are certain things that you start to do. So when you think of a walkway now, everyone says, oh, you said a walkway. No, they're triggers brooms. That walkway is just something that collects validation. And as long as it does that for 20 hours a day, we're happy. And we can change every part of that if we need overnight to achieve and we make much more use of rotable parts. I know Rolls-Royce do it. I have friends who work for the airports. They steal from Peter to feed Paul to keep that plane in the air. We do very much the same because it's about those hours. So we totally changed the way that our field service operation works, our logistics operation, and all this data coming in that we got as well, we're able to backfeed into our engineering and therefore improve the IT services, they improve the outcome, they improve reliability. So our journey was kind of an organic win the customer and innovate. And then because everything was in place, the customer says, well, we want, oh, by the way, I'll let you in a second.
It's fine, no pressure, take your time.
TfL, they had a mindset themselves a few years ago, and I apologise if this goes out and someone from TfL sees this. I hope they'll agree what I'm saying is true. It should be, because I've spoken to the main people. But they want to treat every single person as valid patrons of the service, because people come from the whole world around TfL and they want the experience of integrating with the transport situation to be exactly the same for everyone. And what that means is that if someone boards a bus out in Gravesend, or someone gets a train in Waterloo, or someone gets on at Ongar, or the experience should be exactly the same. And that's why they wanted outcome, because it wasn't just, if it's break fix to us, we wouldn't worry about Ongar. That doesn't care to us. We'd make sure Waterloo's always working because there's 1 million people a day. No, they wanted exactly the same level of service for every patron because they wanted to be world-class London. And that's important. And because of that, when we're setting up our systems and our contracts, there is a temptation, an old mindset, an old engineering thing. Look, there's 1 million people going through Waterloo every day. Get yourself down there, get down there, come on. Ongar, don't worry about it. 3 people and a dog, don't worry about it. No, actually, the penalties are exactly the same for that station as they are for that station. If we lose hours on that, they are as punitive as they are at Waterloo. Final thing. Mm-hmm. That means that the outcome is, although the outcome's the same, we give 20 hours of retail per day per device, or validation per device at some of the stations. Because of the strange dynamics of some of the stations, be it access, be it certification, be it that, all sorts of things, the field service underneath that is totally different. It's almost like the little legs going, Mm-hmm. Because my name's Gosling, I'm called Goose, everyone's called Goose, so the little legs on a goose. Anyway, everyone thinks that it's like standard service to maintain that. It's not. We've utilised the scheduling tools and we utilised the dynamic, the tools. We've utilised those business rules to identify these unique circumstances to make sure that we do maintain that level of service and all that outcome differing from others. And the way we use our engineers, the way we use our logistics, the way we have our access and certification and tools and skills, there are many differences involved in that. Mm-hmm. They're pretty much all automated. But the result is that TfL, you are supplied to supply X amount of hours of retail, X amount of hours of validation, and X amount of hours of back office support. And if you actually look at our schedules now, they're called LU services. Mm-hmm. They're called rail services, back office services, surface transport services, and retail services, because we are not selling gates anymore. Right. So that was a long introduction. Sorry about that.
It's okay. All right, so that's Mike, everyone. Yeah, so so there's a couple things I want to comment on. So again, going back to the aha moments we talked about earlier that can kind of spark this journey. For Cubic, it was very clear because Transport for London, with their objective of providing a high level of consistent customer experience across their whole system, came to Cubic and essentially demanded, if you are going to be our partner, yep, then we want X% uptime across the board. So figure that out. Right?
And it's huge. It's, by the way, it's up in the near 100%. Yes. By the way, yeah. It's not 60.
I was going to say 96 or something.
No, it's much higher than that. Okay. It's way up there.
And so that put Cubic in a position of sorting it out quite quickly. And Mike and I have had a relationship over the past number of years, and so we've talked about their journey quite a few times. And one of the things that we just talked about recently is the fact that it really lended itself to them needing to be quite agile, right? because it had to happen fast. They needed to act quickly and learn on their feet and kind of, get accustomed to that way of operating and then go back and refine, right? So the idea of, okay, can we provide outcomes? Can we guarantee uptime as a minimum viable product? We need to do it no matter what. Then can we go back and reflect on, okay, here's how we're doing it. Here's how we can refine how we're doing it. Here's, these things. And so, there's some different learnings that come through doing it that way, right?
My team that I had that managed these services, to manage these, because I didn't say that, by the way, my team is responsible for the moment an alert appears on any device, be it a reader, be it an LCP, be it in the back office, that alert becomes my property because we monitor it. We're monitoring hundreds of thousands of bits of kit in the system in real time. We then transform that. We decide whether or not it's an incident that gets logged as a ticket, which becomes a dashboard, which becomes a service report, which automatically sends engineers, the mobile comms, to all that happens automatically. I own all of that. And that team, we use Scrumban process. We're trying to go to deliver when ready, but at the moment we have, we're not really sprints anymore. We've sort of got rid of sprints. We use the pull method from the Scrumban. And that means we're very agile, which means that we can literally, the customer can come to us and say, right, we want this new change made. And if the timing's right, it can be delivered in a number of weeks, days even, sort of thing. So, yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. All right, so what I want to do is go back and talk about some of the key aspects of this, okay? And so one of the things you mentioned is the idea of delivering outcomes manually is just impossible.
Yeah.
Right? If not impossible, I would say impossible, but if not, certainly unrealistic, right? The cost to cubic of trying to scale up on manpower, even if it were feasible, to do that is not going to work. So you had to really rely on some of the technological innovation you already had underway, and then add to that.
Well, we had to totally reinvent them with the contract, yeah.
Yes. So talk about the importance of automation and intelligence in being able to deliver outcomes and how that gives you the ability to, as you said, really be able to, in real time, react to whatever complexity comes up. Because to your point, no matter what happens, circumstantially, with the workforce, with the technology, with, Transport for London things going down, world events, et cetera, you still have to deliver that uptime. And so you have to be able to react adeptly to any sort of circumstance.
Yeah, this could be a long answer again, sorry. So first things first, a device fails, it comes all the way through our systems and it says, no, this is not a false positive, it is an actually error. The field service management tool says, no, we know empirically from our knowledge of learning, because of knowledge, that the only way this can be resolved is sending a field engineer. It becomes an incident, it becomes a work package that gets dropped into the dynamic scheduling PSO. PSO will automatically assign that to an engineer based on their skill, their location, their tools, their certification, and the contract. That's key, we'll come back to that in a minute, the contract. That will appear automatically on the engineer's device. It will just ping up. They'll say, oh, we've got to go to Victoria again because I hate it, but they've got to go anyway. They'll go, they'll do all the interaction on the device, which is backfeeded into the systems, which is, by the way, real time, going onto customer dashboards. The customer can look at Victoria and drill on and say, oh, there's an engineer on site, and oh, what's he doing and that. So they can see all that in real time, which means that there's no need for the customer to loads of comms between the customer. They're almost embedded in our service room, if you like. The engineer can resolve that issue, leave it, the dashboard's updated, the jobs are done. The only human interaction with that entire job is the engineer. No one else has touched it. That is where the strength comes in. 80% of the heavy lifting is done on those sort of simple jobs. The system set up, those rules I said about are to manage those 80% of heavy lifting. And to utilise the contract knowledge, the skill knowledge, the tool knowledge, etc. Then you get exception management on top of it. So we have exception managers who spot those things that go on, and And there might be there might be real world situations, there might be, horrible thing to say, but there might be a blue light situation that needs some things. They can then overrule it and then start moving jobs around if they need to, that real world situation. The next thing is you understand your contracts, because it sounds like it's, as I said to you earlier, okay, the outcome is just 20 hours per device of retail, scale that to 100 gates, etc., etc. Well, in actual fact, as I said to you before, every place has their different dynamics and certification and access. And sending someone at 9 o'clock in the morning to fix a walkway at Victoria, you're going to get trashed by that. And also, there are other little things. If, for example, if we consume in hours and then we get more than a certain amount go out, not only are we losing downtime and we're not fulfilling the outcome, we're actually at a degraded service, so we get penalised again. So our contract, there's 115 SLAs or something, and just so really, really, really understanding the contract, not just thinking, I know the contract, really understanding it and how each interacts with that one and how each bullies that one and how. If you set it up to do that one, you're going to suffer on that one and all that. And because we've taken the risk on, we kind of, again, I might get told for saying this, we have a slightly different view of it, maybe to the customer sometimes, because they are engineers and there are people and there are concerns. Humans, every two engineers, different people and different concerns and different things, so they have to be treated differently. So we then set the system up to suit the required skills, the required tools, the required knowledge, all those sort of things, so that the 80% of the jobs can be dealt with like that. There are a lot of challenges. Understanding the contract's one of them. We really put a lot of effort in front end to understand the contracts to the nth degree and how that one bullied that one. And also, by the way, I forgot to mention this, these same engineers work on other customers as well as TfL, so not bullying other customers as well. And they've got a different regime because some of them are still break fix. They're still buying a gate. We are truly outcoming our biggest customer. And so not bullying those. So that was one challenge. The other challenge is people. Because when you've got a kind of a voice and the people like that, you build up friendships, you get this, can I leave early today? Yeah. I don't want to go to King's Cross, I hate going to King's Cross. Okay, I'll never send you there again, that sort of thing. So you have to work through those, you've got to get those people problems to manage those people. And let's face it, we're all here because field service, we would be lost without the brilliant engineers out in the field. They are really the bread and butter. And it would be great if more of them came here, actually. Maybe if customers could be more encouraged to people, real world it here, so that they could have an understanding of what we're trying to do, and then we could listen to them. Because we all think, what they've got to do is go and fix that gate, and then they'll turn up and say, right, two things about it. One, the station supervisor at that place is really stroppy and won't let you on at this time. Two, there's a shelf that means it's really difficult to get your body in. Three, and and these are the real world scenarios that we have to sort of take into account. So learning that, and the final thing is the technology side of it. Is the taking that data and making meaningful use of that data. Understanding, is that really a system? Is that really alert? We do something which I don't think I've ever heard anyone else do. We log self-resolved incidents. An alert might occur and clear itself, but we actually log it as a valid incident, and it looks just a normal incident log. It's totally cleared itself, take full downtime for it, we aggregate them. We are so transparent to the customer, we can go to them and say, these are all your incidents, including the ones that cleared themselves, and the downtime, and what it was, and everything like that. So understanding how your incidents relate to each other, and high order failure them, and all that. So it's a really interesting journey. But we'd already started doing that, as I say, and then when the customer came, it was like, now let's proper navel gaze at those challenges and really understand the contract, the people, Yeah.
All right, so the first thing I want to dig into a bit is talking about the technology a little bit further, and here's how. So Cubic happens to be an IFS customer and uses both field service management, which is the solution that the ticketing would go through and that the technicians interface with, as well as the dynamic scheduling, which is referred to as planning and scheduling optimization, or PSO for short. Now, PSO is an automated scheduling tool that uses AI and essentially is self-learning, okay? And so one of the most impactful conversations I've had with Mike is around his and his team's learnings of what it really takes to make use of an automated tool of that type, right? And meaning it is powerful, but only if you trust it to do its job, right? And so for Cubic, what that has meant is, to your point, understanding first and foremost the contractual obligations for uptime to Transport for London and making sure that the system prioritizes those, but then also takes into account all of these other things: the technician skills, inventory, locations, events, other customer jobs, et cetera. And so what Mike is saying is that through the work that they've done with PSO, 80% of their jobs are done in a completely automated fashion, meaning the ticket comes in, the job is dispatched to the technician, completed by the technician, closed by the technician, without anyone other than the technician interfacing at all. The other 20% are where he's saying the exception managers have to, put some sort of manual effort into doing some of that work. Now, that's a really impressive feat to be at that point. But what it took for you was setting your success criteria and sticking to them while you let the system do its learning, without acting on the human instinct to intervene, right? Because that's what they were used to doing. So can you talk a little bit about that part?
Well, you probably noticed that I've got a fairly big personality and that I'm not easily swayed.
One thing I like about you.
So when we went live the first day with our turning the PSO on, we've talked about understanding the SLAs and the skills and the people and all that. I absolutely made sure that no one played with the system. We put a lot of effort into understanding how the jobs with the contracts, what SLAs they needed, the skills, etc. And it was absolutely, now guys, you have to leave it alone, because it will only work 80% of the time if it's allowed to work 80% of the time. And if you start saying, no, I disagree with that, and moving it, it will rearrange the whole world around it, and you will not get a true figure. I'll come back to data later, because data for me is, that's the next big thing, is, using machine learning to backfeed into engineering stuff. But anyway, so what we were pretty strong and mandated on that we would put in these continuous improvement steps in, and we would have, the first one would be 1 week, and then 1 week, and then it would go to 3, and then 2. And if anyone spots anything, save the plan then, write down very clearly in language that was not ambiguous. It had to be understood, because it wasn't just me that needed convincing, it was the steering group. Someone talked about earlier about the leaders. The man over there, your leaders, service leaders, are sometimes they're in their ivory tower. They've climbed up, and a lot of them are out of touch, maybe. I don't know, that's a bit of one thing to say. But anyway, so you've got to convince those people as well. So you literally do it, and they will moan and they will complain and they will, no, look, there's no way they'll do that job first before that one. And look, okay, we've got it wrong, but let's leave it for now, because maybe it's something else that's happening. Take that data and then literally analyze it to 10th degree, think about it, learn from the data, understand how it is. No, we got the SLA wrong. The first week, clearly, there was one SLE that we got completely wrong, and it was sticking out like a sore thumb. We still resisted the temptation to mess around with it, because I couldn't change my own goalposts. I said we were going to leave it 1 week, I had to. It was clearly obvious it was wrong, but no, it had to stay there the whole week. Then you model, then you implement, you go through, everyone knows continuous improvement. I'm not going to go through that process. After a while, all of a sudden, any complaints today? No. Any complaints today? No, actually, it's quite like that. And excuse me, can I change that? No, you can't change it. And all of a sudden, it just literally fell off a cliff. You had like loads of noise, fell off a cliff. And then it was a similar story with our starting to meet these service outcomes. Forgot to mention, when we introduced these tools, we collaborated with our customer to say, by the way, we're going to introduce a tool that in the long term is going to benefit you and us. You're going to love it as much as we're going to love it, but there might be a bit of a hit to start with. And of course they were, you can't do that. Then when they realised there was a potential hit, fine, you work through it. And this is why working with a collaborative customer is fantastic, or customers, I should say. Brilliant. We took that hit, and then the same time as all the thing, it literally, bang, it fell off. And we started to see a huge improvements in our SLAs, huge improvements of where we were, and enabled us to actually grow the business over a number of years without having to take any extra engineers on. Because we had everyone says when you introduce these tools, oh, we don't have enough engineers, we need more engineers. Throw engineers at it. No, we actually, it turns out we had probably less than we needed to start with and able to grow the business. Oh, they don't have enough hours in the day. Put the jobs into the schedule. What's all that there? That's all spare hours. It's all there. You can see it. So so it was quite interesting that being firm. And I think that's partly why it was brought in very quickly by these senior managers as being a critical business tool, and is now seen as a critical business tool. And in fact, again, I'm conscious, a couple of times I've given demonstrations on behalf of TfL to other transport authorities around the world, because TfL say, look at this is the sort of tools our people are using, and it's wonderful how they use it. So they're recognising the value of it as well. So that was one of the things, is hold your nerve. Hold your nerve. The 3 tips I will give is 1, understand your SLAs to the nth degree. Really go in and just don't think you know them and how they bully each other. 2 is work with your resources, manage the resources. It's going to be horrible. There's going to be a lot of people that really are going to fight and complain, and there are key influencers. They might not necessarily be the best resources, but they're the ones that shout loudest in the pub in the corner at night when they're moaning. Invite them into the discussion. Let them have their say. If you get 2 gems out of them that you're able to implement, they'll recognise that, and they'll sing them from the rooftops, and they'll influence the staff. I know it's a horrible thing to say, but sometimes this is how you win people over. And if something they do suggest is not necessarily right, don't rubbish them. Give them the honest reason why it's not right. And they'll go away hopefully respecting you, and you'll have better respect from them. And then take that advice. So understand your SLAs, understand the people, and hold your nerve. Do not mess around with the system, it'll fight back.
Yeah. So I think this is really important because at the end of the day, to be able to deliver outcomes the way you are, you have to rely on technology. We've established that. Yeah. When we talked earlier.
And that's end to end, that is literally that is full IT services right the way up to the mobile comms. It all contributes to being able to do that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like we talked about earlier with James, ultimately when an organization can move to a servitization model, the more you can leverage tools like this to improve your efficiency, the greater your revenue is going to be, right?
Yeah.
But time and time again, what we see is organizations who are hell-bent on investing in automation, but don't realize that they're not actually wanting to automate. They're wanting sophisticated technology, but they still want to follow the old processes and have that manual interaction. And you can't have both, right? So if you're going to try to leverage the power of an automated tool, you have to understand and be willing to commit to the process of getting it working the way it can.
Yeah, and we're lucky that one of our key sponsors is on the board who lives by those 2 mantras, winning the customer and innovate. And because he's on the board and he innovates, and he's a very, very respected person, and he's our system sponsor, he literally lives that and tells that. Rob will tell you, sit at the back, we do have a couple of people still who've been at the company many years, who still given the opportunity one Saturday morning when none of the managers there will start, I'll give you that job, no problem. And then you come in and go, what the hell happened on Saturday? But unfortunately, this is a fact of life, is that, you can't, it's about managing those things. But yeah, it is going to be committing to it, and truly committing to it, and living it, and also plugging those continuous improvements in, continuing to innovate. I was saying about data, I'll come back to data, because one of the things that I'm really keen to do now that we're getting all this data from stuff is to really start, I was talking to someone earlier, we're starting to look at, I call it collision data because I'm a bit of a numpty, so I invent terms. But basically, if you look at, say, a device starts to fail, you can, and I have done this in the past, I gave an example earlier, if you look at why a device is failing, rather than fix the device, start looking at what's supporting that device. And we found that certain things were happening at the same time, well, hang on, 80% of the time that occurs, that's failing. Right, well, can you not engineeringly fix that rather than try to fix that to cope with that? And using that to make everything more efficient from an engineering point of view, so that you're streamlining things, so you're not building code on that to fix rubbish there. And that's something that we started to do, and we're really keen to exploit when we've got all this data, because if you can do that, that's going to be in service longer, which means that we retain our targets, which means we make more profit. So that's an area that I'm moving into, yeah.
Yeah. And so going back to the topic of change management, it's a really important topic. I always say it's one of the topics I get most frustrated by, because everyone talks about how important it is, but then continually de-emphasizes, deprioritizes actually doing it, right? And that is such a big problem. You know, you gave a couple examples of the very human side of this, right? So technicians used to be able to, like, hey, we have this thing at this station, can you go fix it? Yeah, sure, I'll let you know when I'm done. They stop and grab a coffee, they do this or that. And now they're far more structured, it's far more regimented, and that it's the right thing to do, but that doesn't make it not challenging for them as individuals, right? And so I think, you know, it is an important aspect of these journeys. And so you mentioned, obviously, I like the point about looking for the biggest naysayers and try and get your arms around, you know, why are they frustrated? How are they frustrated? And dealing with that head on. I think a lot of times we think if we ignore a problem long enough, it will go away. No, and that's usually not the case.
Invite them into the discussion.
Yes. Yeah. Any other tips or advice when it comes to change management?
Well, it's other little things as well, by the way, because you can sell the benefits of it. Because previously, when it was all very much ad hoc, you'd end up with when an exception would happen, and the only resource available, who was free, he may end up getting sent right across the other side of town at the end of his shift, and then he'll moan about the fact that he's spending 2 hours of his own time travelling back to his home base. Right. Well, we set the system up to it knows where they start and it knows where they end. So if they want to start at one place, maybe they end somewhere else. I don't know. Maybe they've got a judo lesson or a mistress or something. I don't know, or something like that. But wherever it is, the system doesn't care. We'll set them so that it will actually actively try to schedule them back to that place. So the result is, if they allow the system to do the 80%, they're going to end up fairly close to where they are going to, you know, which is a massive benefit to a lot of them. Yeah. The other thing about it is that also what was happening before is that when you were just ad hoc exception managers, there'd be a number of engineers that got lumped with all the rubbish jobs and all the do that, and they're going, oh, why is it always me that's doing this? This system's agnostic to that, as long as they've got the skills. So they get a better variety of jobs, they get a better profile of jobs, they have more life, more work enjoyment and that sort of stuff, because they're not the ones that are always dumped on to do the stuff, because they're never the ones that complain, you know.
Right.
Can you go and do that job? No, I don't want to do that. Oh, sorry, I know it's you again. So they get a better scope of jobs, they get a better things. The final thing is that one of the frustrating things, engineers actually like to do a really good job. I know that sounds strange, but they actually do. That doesn't sound strange. What I'm saying is that some people think of engineers like want to leave early and do that, and I've portrayed them. They're brilliant. They are the bread and butter. And when you give them a system where it's just go and do this job and do it, and you're getting jobs, they're kind of more empowered actually to do they know that there's never going to. They know that they're not going to have another phone call saying, "Do this. Where are you? What are you doing?" There's no kind of external pressure put on them anymore. Right. They are literally just empowered to go and do a great job. Does that make sense? Yeah, they got the tools to do it.
I think it's a really good clarification, which is if you are investing in the right technology and you're doing it in the right way, it should be something that is helpful to them. If you're hearing a lot of complaining, it's probably, it could be partially because something is not working the way you intended it to, right?
Right, yeah, exactly. So they no longer get the continual, where are you? Are you going to be finishing the next? There's a job at so-and-so. Are you going to... It's literally, I mean, we tried to introduce something into the system to give them an awareness that it was busy, whereby we sort of changed the hue on the colours so that they were aware that things, you know, it never really worked, because in actual fact, they just chug through the jobs and they get and do a great job. So you sold them a number of benefits about lifestyle, being back at home, being more able to do a variety of work and stuff like that. And also, if you want a better variety of jobs, get an extra skill, because the system does it by skill. bang, the skill, and then away it goes. It'll just automatically, the next day you might get one of those jobs. So that's sort of some of the methods we use, as well as introducing some of the people in and stuff like that, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, another thing is that there are certain things that I said to you earlier, two assets are the same thing, and they've both got to be up the exactly same amount of time. As I said, the outcome is so many hours. But the way their environmental conditions, one of them might be strategically important for us for reasons that I can't go into. Others might be rubbish. But the system, we don't know some of those. The engineers know some of those, yeah? So we learn from the engineers those things, and because we then bolt them automatically into the processes and the rules and the business rules in FSM and in PSO, the engineers don't have to suffer the pain that they were suffering because just get there. The system now takes those into account and kind of works around them.
Democratizing some of the knowledge that prior was only in a certain technician's brain.
Yes. Thank you. I'm going to remember that. Democratizing the knowledge.
So one more thing I just want to talk about real quickly, Mike, and this is another thing I like about you is, you mentioned earlier that your team and this tool are well regarded within the business, right? And with good reason. But you could have, gone through the initial pain and adjustment and got it working well, and then just kicked back and put your feet up. And you are of the mind not to do that. You're very focused on continual improvement and ongoing innovation. And I think that's a very important mentality for leaders to have today, because the pace of change isn't slowing down. You don't want to rest on your laurels, so talk about what that looks like for you.
Well, what it looks like for me is in my team, I'm Scrum Ban, I'm the product owner. I'm with other things. But I have pillars that they fall into. Number one is our customers, external customers, winning the customer. I said that, winning the customer. So that's the main pillar. So when they request something, it drops into that pillar of work. Number two is our internal customers, because if you're going to win external customers, you might as well win your internal customers. In fact, it's probably more important to win those so that you can win the external ones. So it's external customers, internal customers. Then you've got your business as usual, making sure, checking the logs, checking the disk size, this thing, that sort of stuff, You're making sure that the infrastructure is working. Three. Then these are the two fun ones. Innovation, ideas, innovation. I've had an idea, drop it in there. Let's go that. And then the final one is continuous improvement driven innovation. And they are two very different things, because continuous improvement is very often because you're looking at an issue that's occurred and then you're backfeeding into innovation is dropping pure innovation into that cycle. There's a sixth one, which is hearts and minds. And that's a sort of an overlaying one where we want to be a wonderful team that's everyone thinks is fantastic, and it's just a reminder of the fact that sometimes changing the colour of something has no discernible mean to anything other than just the heart of minds of something. Does that make sense? And these tiny intangibles can add up to a massive thing. So if someone comes to us and says, I've always been fed up that it's red, can we change it to blue? Sure, let's do that. So they're the pillars, and we drop our work into those. And when we go to the customer and say, you're paying us and all that, we actually say to them, I'd like a few of my releases a year to be innovation. And you might not necessarily get the full benefit of that, because some of it might be to do with the way that our processes work. It might be a process innovation. It might be a sort of an internal technology innovation. But because we're more efficient, you will ultimately see it. And they very often come back and say, yeah, but we're paying you to deliver. Yeah, and then what happens is because you have good discussions with them, sure, you can have that whole releases for your innovation. Off you go, do it whatever you like. So they're the pillars, and there we drop in, and that's the way we work, yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Does anyone have a question for Mike?
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
Hi, Mike. When Qubit changed to the hours at time, in quite a rush, really.
It was, yeah.
You talked about really meticulously understanding the new contract on your customer side. Did that change necessitate a contractual change with your engineers?
I've asked that question, and I think it probably did. But I was so deep in getting the systems working that I've never. Yeah, I'll take that away. You're probably right. It probably did. It probably did. I've got your details, I think, haven't I? Can I take that away and get back to you? Yeah. Certainly, because of the recording of information, we had to go down the GDPR route and understand the PII. And that may have meant that there was contractual changes to allow certain PII to be recorded and stuff like that. But yeah, can I come back to that? Because it did totally change the way that they were working. One classic example is that on the very first day I was in the office, an engineer literally got allocated a job and the phone rang and he phoned up to complain. His exact words were, "I haven't been to effing King's Cross in 10 years and I don't intend going today." And because the system because he'd built that personal relationship with the FRC. So they had totally changed their way of working. But yeah, I'll have to find that out for you.
Another thing, perhaps more an observation than a question then. What I saw what you saying is that when you put in the sort of looking after those devices at scale, with the automation, what you're actually doing is taking away all the manual time that Qubit were investing in sort of booking jobs and dispatching them, to using the information you learned from the field to try and engineer in improvements so they didn't fail in the first place.
I've got this. Rob was going to get really wound because I say this all the time. I've invented this. It's my term. I think there's another one called toast, but knocking the corners off spheres. My team hate that. What it is we've designed, there is a service or a machine that creates perfect spheres, okay? And then one day it starts dropping cubes out. So a whole team jump in to knock the corners off that and turn them back into spheres. And then the end result is that we've got spheres coming out of it. I'm always saying, hold on a second, why are we knocking the corners off spheres? Why are we not fixing it up front? Why are we not going back to the original process? And whenever we have our innovation, it's like, okay, guys, are we just knocking the corners off spheres here? And they all go, oh, he said it again. But it's kind of a little mantra that says, no, actually, let's go back to why is that actually failing? Because that is the thing, or is it because something prior to it is causing? You always hear every system, oh, there's a new back office release happening tomorrow, new back office release, new back office release, new DGC release, new back office release. Back office releases, 9 times out of 10, will actually be, if you've got integrated solutions and your IT services and readers and things, something's going to have an impact on that, whether you like it or not. And it might be that a transaction that's coming up there to pass a payment transaction is now colliding with a new clock in the back office that's doing this. Now they've never tested it in the real world expanse. They did limited testing because we all know testing is very expensive. So you'll do workshop testing for like 1 week, 2,000 jobs, bang. Real world, 1 week, 2 million jobs, fails. And that's where I'm really keen to look at that data. And that's why I call it collisions, because you look at it and say, let's actually look at what's happening, what alerts are happening, what timing's happening. Oh, look, that P1 is occurring because you're getting that file transfer at the exact moment it's trying to do a reboot ACK or something like that, Oh, hang on, what about if you separated those and that sort of thing? So this is the thing I'm really engaged in now, is that back engineering. And I'm annoying quite a few people by doing that. It's difficult because once you've got something working really well and everyone's profits are up and everyone's applauding it and everyone's off having big cigars in race meetings and things because they all think they're fantastic, upsetting the apple cart is like, oh, and this is where innovation is. It's like, do we really want to do that? So we are looking at tools to have machine learning and stuff like that. But the other thing is, by the way, you've got to have a story. You can't just look at data for the sake of it. You've got to be solving a specific problem. For example, that reader has a P1 that occurs 20% readers 4 times a period. That is, and then when you're looking at the data, stop, you must not stray out of that. You must not go off and start getting, oh, I've noticed this. Hang on, is it having a direct responsibility of that? If not, park that for something else and come back to actually that. Because that's the thing with data. You fall into this ocean of it. Everyone calls it the ocean of data, and you end up swimming in a massive sea of it. So make sure you really define your story and your success criteria. The success is that you'll no longer have P1s 20% of the thing.
It sounds a really healthy thing to do. Service organisations are good at being busy and sorting out the here and now, but you sort of looping it back and preventing a lot of it sounds a really good thing to do.
Let's stop knocking the corners off spheres. I think there's another one called toast, isn't it? Toaster comes out burnt, and everyone scrapes the burnt off to turn it back into toast. It's the same sort of thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Yep. All right. So, guys, we're going to break now for lunch. We are going to have 45 minutes for lunch. Okay. So everything is on the back bar. It's help yourself. So please go ahead and do that. And one favor that I will ask, if you can each take just a couple of minutes on this back wall in this networking area, There's a board of what's your biggest challenge. If you can write something on there, I would greatly appreciate it, okay? So that's your homework for lunchtime. We're gonna have lunch and then we'll be back for 3 more sessions. So we'll see you back here around 1:30. Thank you, Mike.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Mike of Cubic Transportation. We will soon be releasing information on the 2023 Future of Field Service live tour stops, so stay tuned for that. You will find that and so much more by visiting us at futureoffieldservice.com. You can also find us on LinkedIn as well as Twitter at the Future of FS. The Future of Field Service podcast is published in partnership with IFS. You can learn more at ifs.com. As always, thank you for listening.